Welcome to the 1000 Hours Outside podcast. My name is Ginny Yurich, and what a guest we have today. So unbelievably accomplished. Neil Pasricha, welcome.
I feel the same way about you, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And thank you so much for being 1,000 person.
1,000. I know, because you have your whole website and this book of awesome. I have two of your books. You've sold over 1 million copies of your books. 1 million.
When you say you, as if I did it, but it was just like, I put out a lot of books. Some of them did really well, some of them didn't. It's just there's a lot of randomness in the world. But yeah, that book, The Book of Awesome, my first book in 2010, based on my blog, 1,000 Awesome Things, did very well.
This is such a fun book, actually, The Book of Awesome, because you just flip it. I mean, I am always impressed, Neil, by someone who can capture the human experience. I don't think I'm very good at that, but someone in every page you open, it is, you're like, oh yeah, that is awesome. Like when someone lands on your Monopoly hotel for the first time, or the sound of rain
Yes.
hitting the tent. And it's every single
Yes.
thing, that a long hug when you really need it. Like whatever page you
Mm.
open to in this book, this would be a really great gift, The Book of Awesome.
Yeah, oh, thanks. Well, yeah, it's waking up and realizing it's a Saturday, flipping to the cold side of the pillow in the middle of the night, hitting a string of green lights when you're late for work. I'll tell you, I was going through a divorce and I lost a close friend to suicide, and I started a blog called 1,000 Awesome Things in 2008, and for the next 1,000 straight days, that's why I'm like a fellow thousand
Yeah.
junkie like you. We live for 1,000 months, we're awake 1,000 minutes a day, we can go on and on about this. Um, I wrote one thing to cheer me up and I posted it at midnight, and it turned into a whole series of books. The first one is The Book of Awesome. I always say it's a toilet book. I sort of, maybe it's a coffee table book, but I sort of tell people it's a good book for the bathroom.
And it's a good gift book because it's just one that it just reminds you that the little things really add up. Like this one, finding out your birthday is on a Friday or Saturday next year. You're like, yes, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Right before the lights go on at the concert. I mean, I just love it. So I've got this one. I also have the happiness equation. That's going to be the one that we talk about today. Want nothing plus do anything equals have everything. This is like my favorite type of book. Like everything is a gem. It's kind of a quick read, but you're like, these are amazing stories that are going to stick with me. This is the thing. Author of 10 books, and you have your own podcast. You have sold I had it wrong. Over 2 million copies across dozens of languages. You've given over 50 speeches at all of these different places. And then your podcast, the award-winning podcast called 3 Books, which 3 is a number 2.
Which you're coming on, by the way. You don't know that yet, but
Three,
you're gonna be on that at some point in the future.
3 is a number 2 because I try and read 3 chapters a day and walk 3 miles and get outside for 3 hours. And that adds up to 1,000 in the year, and it changes your life. But you're
Well,
going
that's
through,
so
I
funny
love
because
this.
three, yeah, that's amazing. Say that again, 3 miles a day,
3
3 hours
3
outside,
chapters.
3 chapters, even though
Yeah.
every book, some books have like a 2-page chapter, some books have like a
Yeah.
50-page chapter.
Yeah. You kind of go with it.
Yeah, I like it. I
But I
like it.
love this idea of uncovering the 1,000 most formative books in the world. My mind is there
Hmm.
too, Neil, because I talked to this man, Alistair Humphreys, recently, and he said the average person only reads 3,500 books in a lifetime. And it made me think like I need all my books to count.
Well, exactly. And you are a counting person, 1,000 hours aside, 3 miles, 3 chapters, 3 hours. I mean, you and I have the same kind of wavelength. And so the concept of my podcast, 3 books, yeah, it's every single time I speak to an inspiring person like you in the future, like Quentin Tarantino, like Brené Brown, like, I talk to like George Saunders, David Mitchell. I ask people, which 3 books most changed your life? And because I'm doing 333 chapters. I call them chapters, not episodes, just to be cute. I'm doing 333 chapters of the show. It adds up to over 22 years of my life, from when I'm 38 to when I'm 60 years old, me reading 1,000 formative books. If you only read 3,500 in a lifetime, like you said, I'm just sort of dedicating my reading to trying to read the books other people tell me to read that actually changed their life, so that I can see what's so good about them. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I do get through 3 chapters, but oftentimes I get through the whole book because, of course, it's an awesome book. That's why they picked it. And so I read them, I write down questions like you. I see your big page of questions right there. And I love plumbing into the depths of someone's mind and someone's soul and going deep on like what changed them and shifted them and what they learned from the book. And so, yeah, I guess I'm also slightly anxious about the 3,500 number and want to make sure they count. And one
Yeah.
way I've made sure that they count is by designing this project to highlight books for me that are not, and I want to point this out to people, that are not Amazon recommendations engine, New York Times bestseller list, pile up the books at the front of the airport bookstore. All that stuff is paid for. Like all that stuff is paid for. Like back in the day, Amazon used to genuinely kind of crack a good recommendation. Now, if you look closely at it, it's sponsored. It's sponsored. It's sponsored. It's not, we have trouble now finding books we truly love because the algorithms are gamed and incentivized to feed us stuff to the top bidder as opposed to what you're actually going to like.
You come up with the coolest ideas and they're super long term. Like the 1000 awesome things is a long term. And I mean, this is going till you're 60. So I love the
Yeah,
idea. I love the
yeah.
idea of which three books. And so people can check out your podcast and your whole host of books that you have. And I'll put the link to your podcast and all of those things in the show notes. This book, The Happiness Equation, is 9 secrets. I love
Yeah.
secrets. We're going to talk about a few of them that people are going to have to read
Yeah.
the book to find out the other secrets. It's an international bestseller. But here's the thing. This is a book about how most people are not very happy.
Mm-hmm.
True. Okay. I think we all know that. But I think also we often think, does it even really matter if we're happy? Like, oh, how much
Mm.
does this really matter? And so one thing that really stuck out to me in this book is the nuns study, the study of these
Yeah.
nuns. And so happiness
Yeah.
really does matter for longevity. Can you tell us about that
Yes.
study?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so first of all, by the way, if you're ever organizing a giant multi-decade research study on people, I recommend nuns because every single variable in their life is controlled. They wear the same clothes, they eat the same food, they live in the same buildings, they're all the same gender, none of them smoke or drink or have sex ever. Okay? And sometimes when I say that, somebody, yells out like, not the nuns I know. But for all intents and purposes here, if you want to have a research study, their variables are really controlled. So in the 1930s and 40s, when they were writing handwritten autobiographies to get into convents, the researchers in the 2000s at the University of Kentucky said, wait a minute, we have piles of boxes with all those autobiographies in them. We can do a language analysis on those autobiographies. And if they were using happy language, like phrases like looking forward, eager joy, or blessed life, we'll put them in a pile called happy nuns. 25% of the nuns use one of those three key phrases. And guess what, Jenny? When they checked in on how those nuns were doing, 60, 70 years later, the ones that were happier heading into the convent lived an average of 10 years longer. Fellow number junkies, we live for 30,000 days. That's the average lifespan in North America. Okay, it's 25,000 globally, 30,000 in North America. If you're listening to this in North America, you already got a 5,000 day bump. But what I'll add to that is if you can be happy, you get another 3,000 more. 3,000 more sunsets, long hikes with your kids and your dog, having a bowl of ice cream on your porch. I mean, 3,000 more of them. Life is finite. Life is short. Life is fleeting. And so, why should we care about happiness? Well, because we get a lot more life.
Yeah. 54% of the most happy nuns reach the age of 94 compared to 15% of the least
Yeah,
happy
and these are
nuns.
people that were born in like, the 1910s. 94 now may not sound as shockingly high, but that's high for
It's high.
for the people that they were studying,
It's high.
you know?
Wow. Okay, so then here's the problem. Happiness matters. It matters for longevity, just
Yeah,
matters for quality of life. But
yeah.
we have this model that if we work hard and we get all these successes, like you've had all these
Hmm.
successes, right? You get all these hits on your blog and then you've got your book deal and the book sells this many copies and it's an international bestseller, that we have this great work, this big success, and then we're happy. So
Uh-huh. This
wrong.
is the most common parental wisdom of all. Like every parent says to their kid, "Oh, come on, we want you to get into a good school. We want you to get a good job. We just want you to be happy." And like you said, you distilled it down into 6 words. Great work leads to big success, leads to be happy. But what I argue in the happiness equation is that those 6 words actually need to be kind of thrown into a boggle game and shaken up and spit back out. So instead of great work, big success, be happy, like we're taught, it actually goes the other way around. We need to train our brains to be happy first. Okay? And we can talk about how to do that later, but we have to train our brains to be happy first. Then we do great work. Happy people are 31% more productive. They have 300% higher creativity. They have 37% higher sales. So all of these like kind of like work measures They all go up. And then the big success now comes at the end. Happy people live longer, as we talked about. But if it is career success you're after, I will also just add in happy people are 40% more likely to get a promotion in the next 12 months. Also, happy people are, I forget the percentage off the top of my head, like something like 56% more likely to stay together in their long-term relationship. So there's myriad benefits down the line if we can cultivate happiness first. One more time, the 6 words are not great work, big success, be happy. The 6 words are be happy, great work, big success. A little bit easier to describe on a piece of paper, but we've done our best on the podcast
And
format
it is
here.
in the book. It is in the book. So people can look at it on a piece of paper. It's got the arrows and everything. It is on page 6. It will change your life. So you're right there. You get the book. It's called The Happiness Equation, international bestseller. Like I said, these are all great gifts. We're like, I mean, we're really out heading into it's like September, but I mean, all the holiday stuff's out. So grab these books for your friends, for your family. I think most people would say, no, you can't do that. Doesn't work. You can't start with being happy. Happiness is a byproduct. How would you start with being happy? And you have got the big 7 ideas in this book,
Yeah.
uh, you know, to get you on the path of starting there, starting to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
One of them has to do with getting outside.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Like you and I have more in common than I think we like. It's great. Like we're people don't know we're meeting now, but you don't know this,
Like
Jenny.
15
But
minutes
people have
ago.
been telling me about you for a very long time. People have been
Ah,
telling me about you, about your show, about your podcast. Because there's just a huge overlap. So I'm going to use the research. I'm going to use the research. Why don't we check out the research? Researchers said to 3 groups of people, why don't you take antidepressants? Why don't you go outside 3 times a week for 20 minutes? Way less than what you're advocating, but I'm just saying it was
yeah.
something. And then the third group, why don't you do both? Take the antidepressants, which by the way, 10% of our society is on right now. That might even be a low estimate. And go outside. After a 10-week period, the ones who had just gone outside outperformed the other 2 groups, including the ones taking both the walks and the antidepressants on happiness scale, which means that going outside massively increases your happiness. There's many ways to describe this. Obviously, your body's moving, you're getting fresh air. But one thing I like to point people to is that trees release a chemical that we did not know that they released for millions of years. It's called phytoncides, Phytoncides. Dr. Ching Li, his last name is Li, at Osaka University over in Japan. I interviewed him for my podcast. He's talking to me all about it. He
You
wrote the book.
did the forest bathing guy?
Yeah, I interviewed him.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I have
Yeah,
his book.
yeah, okay, exactly. We can connect you after if necessary or if you'd like to. But he was talking about, look, he did a lot of studies, but basically what happens when you breathe in phytoncides, which all trees release, is it lowers your cortisol. It lowers your adrenaline. Straight up, those are the stress hormones in your body. It increases the production of your NK killer white blood cells, which are the blood cells that help improve your immunology. It increases your heart health. Like, what are you talking about? We just go outside. So I'm a left brainer, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, I want the data, I want the numbers, I want the well, there you go. Like your grandma was right. You know what I mean? Like get outside 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day. It's not much. It's a minimum effective dose, massive increases to your happiness.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of other ideas there too on how to be happy first. I have always loved that they call them NK killers. And like everything else
Oh
in
yeah,
medicine
I know
does
it's a
not have
weird.
a
I
good
know
name.
when I say it, it sounds weird.
I
Yeah,
think it
NK
sounds cool.
killers.
I think everything
Yeah.
else is like fight on sides. You don't even know how to say it, right? But like the NK killers, I think that's great
Yeah,
for
I
your
know.
immune system. Someone did a good job naming that. Why do we always want more? I mean, this is the thing. Like, I felt like in this book, The Happiness Equation,
Mm,
you did such a fantastic job of illustrating, like, okay, I wanted a blog. I wanted to hit this many views.
hmm
And then I got there. But then I was like, well, really good people hit this many views. And then I got a book deal and I wanted the book to sell 50,000 copies. But then I was like, well, no, really good people sell this many copies. Oh, well,
Yeah.
and really good people actually, they make it to the New York Times bestseller list and they don't even stay there for a week. They stay there for a long time. And I made it to 200 weeks. And, it's like, it illustrated so perfectly how we all are that we hit that. We hit it. We hit what we believe to be the pinnacle. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer our pinnacle. Why do we do that?
Well, we used to live for the vast majority of our species history in what I would call a culture of enough. you needed to have enough berries to satisfy your hunger. So you'd forage in the woods till you were full. You needed to have enough safety, security, food, shelter, etc. And then researchers disagree on the exactly when, but there's a captivating study that says it's about 100 years ago. Like we're coming up on like the 100-year anniversary of switching from the culture of enough to the culture of more. In the 1920s, for the first time, radio advertisements could be beamed inside people's houses. We talk about having the internet in our pocket today and how it's like, an online shopping mall. My wife Leslie calls Instagram the lives store. She's like, you're trying to like buy another person's life. But back in the
Wow.
1920s, it was like radio ads were beamed in, and over time, you know, one example is no one used deodorant. But of course, when you get ads forever about you stink and no one will like you, and the girls will shun you if you don't wear deodorant, like over time, everyone's going to wear deodorant. And so see what's happened is we've switched from the culture of enough to the culture of more. And now in this culture of more, um, our kind of life is constantly compared to the best life of everybody else, which it's actually not even the best life. It's the best side of everybody else's life. Because of course we don't know their full life. We only see the greatest hits version, and we're comparing it to our own director's cut. So part of what's driving this hedonistic treadmill of always changing more and more and more is that our culture is speaking to us that way. And I don't watch Netflix. Like I don't really like I read books. I'm really kind of heads down into books. I read a tremendous amount of books a year. I have this podcast. I got to prepare for them. I'm interviewing people. I got to interview. I got to read their formative books before I interview them. Sometimes they send me like thick 1,000-page books. So I'm like heads down. But when I did watch like Big Little Lies with Leslie, my wife, I was like, we should renovate our bathroom. Like literally, I would say that to her. I was like, oh my God, look at that bathroom. Like we should totally renovate our bathroom. Like our bathroom is so ugly and small and dark. And look at the like I was starting to buy. I was starting to think of the show like a mall because I was comparing my own squalor with these luxury homes. And I can't remember where the show was, if it was Malibu or something, but we all do that. And it's dangerous because of course our brains have something in them called our amygdala. It's the oldest part of our brain. It's the walnut-sized thing in the center of our skull, and it knows how to fight or flight. But when you're on Instagram or you're getting fed For You videos on TikTok, you're going to be titillated endlessly. And that is a recipe for unhappiness.
It's like we see too much. You wrote, no matter how many external goals I achieved, I just kept setting more. And I thought
Yeah.
it stretched my thinking. Like, I really need to be aware of this and choose to be happy first. And you have all of these fantastic ideas, including just, come on, setting your screens aside. Austin Kleon says he's a professional reader.
Yeah. I love him. I love him. He was on 3 books as well. And I listened to your chat with him. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, he's fantastic, a professional reader. I was like, what a day and age. Your book, The Happiness Equation, has something I've never seen in a book and maybe we'll never see again, a secret chapter.
Yeah.
A
A secret
secret
chapter.
chapter. It
You know
didn't
what's
even have
funny?
page numbers.
Well, I can actually tell that you've read it because you've mentioned the secret chapter. And I will say this may actually be the first interview I've ever done on the Happiness Equation where I'm talking about the secret chapter. It was hard to convince the publisher, although to their credit, they got behind it. So this is a chapter in the book that has, to your point, no page numbers. It's not in the index.
No
It's not in the table
page
of
numbers.
contents. And the page numbers before the secret chapter and after the secret chapter like connect. So it's
Yeah,
like it's like
it
it's
really is.
invisible pages. It's
Yeah,
like subtracted pages from the book.
yeah.
Not in the table of contents, not in the index. So I always know someone's read the book if they mention the secret chapter. Well, what the secret chapter is about is when I was a kid, I'd be spinning a CD, at the very end, if you let, the Nirvana album spin long enough, a secret track sometimes played. And I was always really captivated by this. And so because I wrote the happiness equation about you, like you controlling your happiness, I thought, let me stick one little secret chapter in there about your relationship with your partner, if you happen to have a partner. And so the point of the secret chapter is I say one way to improve your happiness is ask yourself just in general, like what percent of the time are you happy? Like what percent of the time are you in a good mood? And, for me, I said Getting 80%. Maybe I'm being kind, but I
You're
said myself
you're flipping
80%.
through right now, trying to find the secret chapter, which I
Here it
absolutely
is.
love.
I'm holding
Yes,
it right up. It's
yes.
hard to find. It's hard to find. It's a secret
It's
chapter.
hard to find.
Um,
All right, I've got
and
mine
then I
open.
say, ask yourself.
I was really like tickled when I went to take notes on it because when I take notes, I also put page numbers in case I have like a typo and I need to go back and check. And I was like, there is no page number on these secret chapter pages.
Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't be very
I
secret.
was very entertained. Anyway, okay,
Um,
go ahead. I interrupted.
well, I was just no, just to people listening, just they want to get the secret from the secret chapters. Ask yourself how happy you are, how often you're happy. I said 80%. Ask yourself how often your partner's in a good mood, or how often they're happy. I said Leslie, my wife, 80%. Then I have a little grid in the secret chapter, multiply them together. If I'm happy 80% of the time and she's happy 80% of the time, guess what? We're both happy 64% of the time. I have a little grid that shows you, 80% over 80% is 64%.
Okay,
So
let's
that
talk
means,
about that real quick because I used to teach math because I was like, oh, this is interesting. You're multiplying
yeah,
decimals. So 80% is zero
yeah,
point 0.8. 80% is zero point
yeah,
0.8. So zero point 0.8 times zero point 0.8 is 0.64, which is
yeah.
64%. That was so interesting.
Yeah, right. 80% of it. It's just sort of like if I wake up on 80% of the days and I'm in a good mood, and Leslie wakes up 80% of the days in a good mood, that means we both wake up in a good mood on 64% of days. Which I love that you geeked out on the math side, but it just means 2/3 of days in our house, we're both in a good mood. However, interesting, multiply the opposite, 20% and 20%. I'm in a pissy mood. She's in a negative mood. 20% times 20%. What's 20% of 20%? It's 4%, which means on 4% of the time, we're both in a grumpy mood. Watch out. This is like recipe for disaster, right? And what's interesting to note is in this model, every couple has a big range where one person's in a good mood, one person's not. And so my argument is that's where one person has to pull the other person up, or where one person can pull the other person down. And the ultimate takeaway I was trying to help people with is just sort of like observe what this is in your relationship and just recognize and kind of discuss it in your relationship. Because I'm not telling people like leave the person that you're with if they're depressed. I'm not saying anything like that. What I'm saying is let's observe what these numbers really are in our relationship because it can help guide us towards um, better relationship skills. And I will also say for the happiness equation, a lot of people who read it, and maybe kind of who I was writing to at the time, are like were like in their 20s, like I was getting a lot of questions at live events, like, how do I know I'm with the right person? My parents won't let us live together. So how do we test our relationship before we get married? Like I was getting a lot of questions at the time, probably because I was speaking to like camps and colleges and universities and stuff. And so this chapter was sort of inspired by those conversations.
It motivated me to try and get a higher number and also made me feel a little bit better about the times when you're not in a good spot because it's like, well, that's just normal. No, you don't have
Yeah, of
100% and
course.
100%. You're always going to have the little bit of time where and then a little bit it compounds. And then on the other side though, it's like, man, if you can keep your positive attitude higher and your negative attitude a little bit lower, then it's just going to help everyone. So, okay, if you are looking for a book that has a secret chapter, you are going to find it in the happiness equation. It's a great one. All right. I talked to Dan Buettner about retirement. He is the Blue Zones guy. And I thought it was interesting. I did not know until I read his book that retirement does not exist in other cultures. And in some other cultures, the word doesn't exist. It's not even there. I didn't know the backstory. And I learned this from your book. And I was floored. Retirement is a new concept even here. And you say it's a broken concept. Why
Hmm.
is it a broken concept?
Well, should I share the backstory quickly for people?
You're going to talk about Mr. Wilson?
I was going to talk about the Germans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Start there.
So basically, in the late 1800s in Germany, Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, which is the coolest head of state name of all time, he was the head of Germany. He's like, uh-oh, I got a 30% youth unemployment rate. So I'm going to financially incentivize people 65 and older to leave the workforce. Okay, that was where the age 65 came from. Of course, lifespans in 1800s Germany, late 1800s Germany, was 67. So this wasn't like meant to financially bridge you for very long. It was just like maybe, on average, people died 2 years later. And for a long time throughout the 20th century, people didn't retire. There was a theory called activity theory, which is sort of summarized into this thesis of kind of like when you're through changing, you're through. Like my wife has like a 93-year-old grandparent, and I'm always like, oh, do you want me to like help you with your socks, or do you want me to like help you like, get down the ladder into the lake. And she's always like, if I stop doing it, then I won't be able to. She sort of says that. Well, there's some thesis that people have, which is if you stop learning and doing, then you won't be able to. So the percentage of people who retired throughout the 20th century was like pretty low. But then in the 1950s and 60s, kind of life insurance stepped in and they created this story that you deserve a life, you deserve a period of rest after a very long and strenuous and hard career. And so this is where Florida and Arizona and these sun life communities like started popping up. And then the percentage of people who retired spiked. Problem is our lifespans have extended significantly. So when I said 30,000 days earlier, that translates into about age 83, 84. Well, that's today, which means people born today are actually forecasted to live into like their 90s and hundreds. There was a cover of Time magazine a few years ago that says like this baby's going to live to 110 because that's where we see the lifespans extending with modern medicine and all these replacements, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've extended the age we live, but we've mimicked the age 65 number, not we. The US 1935 Social Security Act is age 65. England has pegged it at age 65. We in Canada have had mandatory retirement. I'm in Toronto, by the way, for those listening. We've had age 65 as like this sort of like, retirement age. And in fact, the advertisements now depress that number and say, oh, you deserve it even earlier. Freedom 55. How young can you retire? And so we've created this chasm between what we want to stop working and when we pass away. And what I say is retirement's a broken concept. The idea that you think that you can afford to do that and that we could pay people to sort of do nothing doesn't really work. In fact, that's not really what we want. My argument is that what we actually want is what I call the four S's. I think these four S's, and none of them are salary, by the way, are actually what we should look for to do meaningful work. It doesn't have to pay you, but you always got to be doing something that gives you the four S's. What are the four S's? Number one is social. You need social connection. The number one driver of our long-term happiness more than anything else is the strength of our relationship with our friends and family. That comes from the 1938 Harvard Adult Development Study. Robert Waldinger is the director of that study. I don't know if you've had him on 1,000 Hours or not, but he's maybe a wonderful guest for you. And so they've studied people from 1938 to now. It's social relationships. So when you quit your job, you lose a lot of that, right? You lose the other teachers in the hallway, the other people at the meatpacking plant, the other pharmacies at the store, whatever. Social connection is important. Some companies actually ask people in engagement surveys, do you have a best friend at work? Because the companies have realized that when the answer is yes, people are more likely to stay at the company. Okay. Number two, structure. We need a reason to kind of get out of bed in the morning, okay? And so Dan Buettner probably talked about ikigai, which is spelled Ikigai, which roughly translates in Okinawan, one of the blue zones, as the reason you get out of bed in the morning. I keep a cue card folded on my dresser or my side table. Sometimes it says, help people live happy lives. I'm getting all high and mighty, right? Sometimes it says, finish the chapter of the next book. Sometimes it says like, do the podcast interview with Ginny. Sometimes it says, sometimes I forget to write one. But I have, when I open my eyes, an ikigai, a reason for getting out of bed. The structure of my days is sort of set, and work does give us that. Three, stimulation. The third S is stimulation. Always learning something new. And if you are in a job listening to this, ask yourself, has it changed in the last year? Am I doing something new? Am I doing something different? Do I feel challenged? We need to have stimulation. We are learning creatures. That's why you're listening to this podcast, right? Because you're trying to learn from Ginny and her great big mind and her wonderful guests. And the final S is story, being part of something bigger than yourself. Okay, so the collective we can always achieve more than what I can achieve. And when you're part of a team or an organization or a group or a company, you have that story. Often in kind of for-profit America, it's called the mission statement, like the Red Cross's mission is, helping people in suffering. Google's mission is like organizing the world's information. Like the mission is meant to be the story, but it could just as easily come from like volunteering at your local town library, right? Or walking the neighborhood dog. And my story is like, taking care of the animals in my neighborhood. Like it doesn't have to be massive to be good or to be real. So in sum, we don't actually want to do nothing. We actually just want to do something we love. And the four S's, social, structure, stimulation, and story, can help constantly point us towards meaningful work. I say in the happiness equation, and it's a controversial statement, but I say it, never retire.
I it stretched my thinking. The whole book stretched my thinking because you go through basically what it feels like everyone thinks, which is like that be happy comes at the end, or we're living for retirement. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Maybe I mean, and I used to teach, I taught for a couple of years and then and we had kids and I don't teach anymore, but you could buy retirement. I mean, talk about something that like it didn't even exist and now you can buy it. So you could buy 5 years of retirement. I don't even really know how that works. So people were retiring at 46. You start at 21, you're going to
Yeah.
work 25 years, 46. And it feels like that is the end all be all. And what you say is this is a broken concept. You're giving up the things that you want. So you said, Mr. Wilson, this
Hmm.
was your counselor. And
Yeah.
Dan Buettner said that one of the most,
High school
yes,
guidance counselor.
one of the most dangerous years of your life is that first year of retirement. Mr. Wilson taught me that retirement, as we think of it today, isn't a dream we actually want. We don't actually want to do nothing. We just want to do something we love. The Ikigai card, you say cost me
Hmm.
10 cents. I thought
Yeah.
this is one of the best ideas ever. You said, you put on it to remind myself and others how lucky we are to be alive, which is so
Hmm.
deep and beautiful. But just the idea of even changing it out, I never even considered, because usually you think of that as like this existential ideal. What is my ikigai? But you're like, no, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
to have something on your nightstand and when you wake up in the morning to see is such a wonderful, it's unique and practical idea.
Yeah. Well, it goes with my other nightstand ideas, which, by the way, 99%, I'm not making that number up. 99% of people right now are sleeping beside their cell phones. Like their phone is the first thing they see when they wake up. And the phone is telling them, three texts from your sister, new comment on your Instagram post. It's like that. You got to set your fantasy football lineup, blah, blah, blah. Your phone is kind of like the boss of you. Like it's like telling you your agenda, your schedule, your texts, your emails. The beautiful thing about doing the Ikigai is that when you open your eyes, and I might say to take care of my great grandchild, it might say, to walk the neighbor's dog, or it might say to kind of keep in touch with my sister in her last days of life. Whatever it is, you write that down, right? Then what I preach is I actually suggest people do a 2-minute morning practice. It's not in the happiness equation. It's actually in the orange book behind me called You Are Awesome, which should have been called the resilience equation. But I wrote a book afterwards. It's the same 9 secret structure. And I preach doing a 2-minute morning practice right when you wake up. I say, when you wake up in the morning before the day begins, you're in this precious liminal state between your subconscious and your conscious. And that's a really important time where you can just take 2 minutes to write down 3 quick journaling prompts. And the 3 quick prompts are: I will let go of,
Mm.
I am grateful for, and I will focus on. So right before you get out of bed, you look at your Ikigai, taking care of your grandchild, helping people live happy lives. My wife's, by the way, as a teacher in the public school system in Toronto, she writes to teach empathy to kids. That's what she writes on her
Oh,
Ikigai card.
so good.
And it's an opportunity for you to like sort of say, okay, that's my high North Star. Then you do the 2-minute morning practice. I will let go of. Well, it's not just Catholics and the Catholic confession chamber. Buddhism, Mormonism, Judaism, Islam. Did you know almost every religion has a form of confession or repentance baked into it? Yet, according to National Geographic, the fastest growing religion is none. The fastest growing religion is none. So, Rainn Wilson, star of The Office, Dwight, who played Dwight on The Office, he says, right now in our culture, we're throwing out the spiritual bathwater with the religious baby. That's how he puts it. That's a funny phrase. But what he's a person, but we've lost something because research shows when you have an opportunity or a place to vent, to confess, to kind of repent, it actually helps you. It actually helps you feel better. That's why the website postsecret.com, another potential 1,000 hours guest, Frank Warren, has collected over 1 million postcards of people writing in confessions and secrets because people need a place to vent. So I will let go of the nasty text I sent to my sister 3 days ago. I will let go of the stupid thing I sent in a meeting on Monday that I'm still kicking myself over on Friday. I will let go of the fact that I yelled at my kid to put their shoes on this morning before they went to school, and I feel like a horrible dad for the next 2 days. I will let go. It's like wiping a wet chamois over the blackboard of your mind. The second thing you write down is I am grateful for. Well, this will be a familiar refrain as we go throughout this conversation, because Emmons and McCullough's research shows that if you write down even 5 specific things you're grateful for a week, you're not just happier, but you're physically healthier. And just a newsflash, you don't even have to go to the gym. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to write down gratitudes. But they got to be specific. Don't write down my husband, my kid, my dog. We're trying to trigger an area in your brain called your visual cortex. It gets triggered, area 17. It gets triggered in there when you have specifics. So don't write down my husband. Say, when my husband Antonio put the toilet seat down. Don't write my
Okay.
kid. Say, when my 6-year-old daughter Sonia learned how to write the letter S. Don't say my dog. Say, when the rescue puppy we got 3 weeks ago stopped peeing on the couch. Right? All I'm doing is adding one layer of specificity. That triggers the visual cortex. That makes your brain think you're reliving it. And now you're doubling and tripling the happy moments of your day. And finally, the last prompt in the 2-minute morning card, after I will let go of and I am grateful for, is I will focus on. And this gets back to the fact that we're all living with decision fatigue right now. And when you look at your phone, it tells you a million things to do, but you aren't telling yourself the one big thing you want to do today, the one person that you love that you need to spend more time with, the 3-hour walk you want to go on with me and Ginny at the end of this podcast, or maybe while listening to this podcast, the, softball game you really want to coach, the person that reports to you at work that you need to give a little bit of a tough coaching conversation to, but you've been putting it off for a month.
If you
Like,
run out of
that
ideas,
is the focus.
if you run out of ideas for any of these things, you can just pick up your book of awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Jenny Lawson, who wrote Let's Pretend This Never Happened, calls the Book of Awesome a gratitude journal I didn't even have to write.
Yeah, it's the truth. If you're running out of ideas, I mean, you just, uh, when your sneeze stalls for a second and then suddenly comes booming out, and you're like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
I got it. And when there's ice cream left at the bottom of the cone, it's amazing. Oh, there's a one about a paycheck. Anyway, if you run out of ideas, is it there a journal? Do you have a journal that you can do the 2-minute
Yeah.
meditation in?
Yeah, I always joke that
The
it's
two
the
minute,
number
did I
one
call it the wrong
best-selling
thing?
book I've ever written. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It's called 2-Minute Mornings, and it has nothing in it except for those 3 prompts. I will let go of, I am grateful for, I will focus on. Most because people buy one copy of the happiness equation, but I get emails saying like I'm on my 8th copy,
Yeah.
of 2-Minute Mornings because you can only fit 6 months of entries in.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah,
pardon?
you could, but that's a great thing to have. And then what a cool thing to look back on. That's a
Well, that's
really,
the thing. When you
yeah,
look back on it, you will always notice that the things you need to let go of, the nasty text to your sister, the dumb thing you said in the meeting, the yelling at your kids, you always are like, oh my gosh, I was worried about that. Like literally the emotion I always have is, oh my gosh, like that was what was keeping me up at night. That was what was stressing me out. Like you can observe your own personal growth when you see yourself from a distance, obviously.
yeah. So it's called 2-minute mornings.
Mm-hmm.
So people can get
Yeah.
that in conjunction with these books. I loved this sentence. Every day at work, like this is under the provide stimulation you were talking about. It just really was like mind bending. I'm like, gosh, I have not really thought about things this way. We glamorize leisure. That was the wording in here. And we were kind of sold that. That's what I learned. And we're just waiting for this retirement thing. And you wrote, every day at work, you experience. I mean, I think nobody says this. We look at work as drudgery, but you wrote, every day at work, you experience hundreds of tiny joys. They're easy to overlook, but work exposes us to simple joys every day. Oh, what a mindset shift. And it's true.
Yeah, we spend most of our time at work at the end of the day. Matthew Killingsworth at Harvard University did a really famous study where he had like people's phones buzz like at random times over periods of weeks. And the question was simple. It was, what are you doing right now and how happy are you? And by far and away, the thing that people were doing more than anything else, which is also the place that they were the least happy, was work. Like how unfortunate. The thing that they're doing the most makes them the least happy. Whereas the things that they were doing the least, walking the dog, going to church, cooking dinner, making love, playing with my kid, they were tiny little circles on the pie chart, but they were making people much happier. And so I just sort of looked at that chart and my thinking was, if we can improve happiness at work, then we can massively improve our total happiness because that's where we're spending the most time. That's where we are then happiest. So my point there that you just read from the book is, you know, how nice is it watching the cream go into coffee, right? how nice is it opening or closing a meeting with gratitude? And if you're a boss or you're a participant, you can say, hey, let's open this meeting with everybody says one good thing that happened to them today. Or everybody closes with, hey, what's one thing you're looking forward to this week? Like, it isn't that hard to do that. It might seem awkward at first, but the research shows it makes everyone end up in a much better mood. The random hallway conversation you have, when your boss sends you an email congratulating you or thanking you for something, and then CC's her boss. Like that type of recognition can be. So we're getting all kinds of little awesome fulfillment, yet most of us have sort of got this one sort of negative cloud of like work. Jerry Seinfeld's a famous phrase, I don't know where you work, but I know you hate it. He always says, I don't know where you work, but I know you hate your job. Well, I'm kind of trying to argue the opposite. I don't know where you work, but I think we can learn to enjoy it more.
Yeah, so good. And then this even talks about overworking. Like you talk about the buckets. People have to pick this up, but I loved that you've got these buckets of time and that you have 3 buckets of time and
Yep.
one's for work and one's for living and all the other things and one's for sleep. But then
Yeah.
some people are taking 2 of the 3 buckets and doing work.
Well, that's my point. So this is kind of fun for the left brainers again. So a week has 168 hours in it. If you divide that number by 3, you get 3 perfect buckets of 56. 56, 56, and 56. So if you do what the doctors tell us to do and sleep 8 hours a night, and I know many people don't, including me most of the time, but like let's just say we do get it, we get that 8 hours, that fabled 8 hours. Well, that's 56 hours. Like 8 hours a night times 7 days a week is exactly one full bucket. A whole bucket a week, you're sleeping, right? Now, what if you have an 8 hour a day job? That's 40 hours a week, right? But this is what I'm kind of talking to
And
this
there's
burnt out
commute
over
close to that 56
emails at
hours.
night.
Yep.
You get a last minute request on Friday, now suddenly you're working on Saturday or Sunday. And as with any book, you're talking to your past self, right? So I was this person that was always checking my BlackBerry back in the days, in the evenings and the weekends, and I was like wanting to scramble and respond if my boss emailed me on a Saturday, I wanted to respond on Saturday. Like I wanted to show them that I was present and I was functional and I was like committed to my work. So guess what? That's a 56-hour bucket. And my argument in the happiness equation is that those 2 buckets both create and pay for and justify your third bucket. Now, the third bucket, oh, that's the juicy one. That's the do whatever you want bucket. That's the host a giant podcast and Instagram page bucket. That's the work out and become super buff bucket. That's the have tiny kids in your life and your family and drive them around to soccer for a decade bucket. Like whatever it is, that's your learn another language bucket, right? That's your travel and see the world bucket. And most people, when I do this little kind of 3 bucket model, the biggest takeaway I hear from people is, holy crap, what am I wasting all my time? Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I spending that third bucket on? Because they typically do not argue that they work more than 56 hours. Because I made that bucket kind of inflated on purpose. They typically do not hour that they sleep more than 8 hours a night because they don't. So now they're like, wait a minute, what am I doing in that third bucket? So sometimes the happiness equation gets the criticism that, okay, this is pretty privileged because you're not taking into account like, you know, laundry and dishes and all this stuff. And I am not trying to be privileged. I'm just trying to argue that it's a Seneca quote, Seneca, the Stoic philosopher from 2000 years, life is long if you know how to live it. I'm basically arguing that there's more time available than what we actually feel like there is. And if you take out a lot of the average 3 hours on social media that Gen Z is currently spending, which is horrible for their mental health, then you start to see the time come back into your life a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. The buckets. I love this book. I love this book. I loved it from page one all the way to the end through the secret chapter, the list of all the decisions you make in a day, which I'm like, I can't really read this hardly. And maybe that's the point. The comics that are in here. I mean, this is one of all the decisions that you make in a day. And I was like, I kind of, if this is so good. It's on page 165 and 166. And it was something like hundreds of decisions you make a day and how to narrow that down. 285 decisions a day, 75 at the
Yeah,
gym, 62 about checking email, 32 decisions about food. So even that, like narrowing down your decisions so that you
yeah,
have more time. I mean, what a book. And you know what? Okay, the work thing was interesting to me too, because you worked at Walmart.
yes. 10
And
years.
and I kind of have this dream of working at Costco. I would like to bake the cakes. And I think that would be fun.
Ah,
They're back there and they're
yeah.
making the cakes and they're putting on the decorations and they're putting everybody's congratulations. And there's like a group of people back there. But I always felt like you're not supposed to dream about baking cakes at Costco. Would this change my mind?
Why? Well, I mean, look, everyone, Costco's got a wonderful reputation as an employer. They pay way over average. They retention is high. I love how on Costco badges, and this is actually something I'm writing today. I'm working on, I've been working on this book about trust for years. And one of the things I point out is that when I went to go work at Walmart, we color coded our badges. 5 years was a different color, 10 years was a different color, 15 years was a different color. Costco had the same thing since, it says at the bottom, since 2008, means how long you've worked there, since 2015, since 2002. And what happened at Walmart when I worked there is they stopped color coding the badges. They made them all blue while I was there. So we disappeared the seniority. We took away the argument that the longer you work here, the better. This is some of the problem I have with the retirement-oriented culture is that we sort of disparage older people. We don't have enough mentoring. We don't have enough reverse mentorship. We see productivity fall and we don't understand crystallized intelligence versus dynamic intelligence, and we don't value wisdom. Anyway, that's a whole separate rant about culture and society in general. I think we're all quite I think culture is quite ageist, you know. Look at all the big professional services firm. They all have mandatory retirement still. You know, you have to if you're a partner at KPMG, I'm making it up, so don't shoot me if you're at KPMG. Then you have to be out of here by like 68. Like it's like law firms have this, like a lot of companies have this. And so
Wow.
what
I will. It's interesting though, because it's to me in the culture, it's like that would be considered like a grueling job that you don't want to do forever. But
long time. I also loved my 10 years at Walmart. And to be clear, I was not working in a Walmart store, although I did work in a Walmart store occasionally, you know, as you know, we did these days in the store, but I was working in the HR department at the Walmart home office, and I loved the culture. I loved the company. It gave me the four S's. And it's not because I love big corporate. I worked at Procter and Gamble before that, and I hated it. That was like you got to do things exactly one way. You got to have the exact font size and you got to have the exact format. It was like everyone dressed the same and talked the same. I hated that place. But Walmart fit me in my culture. You hear how I talk? I could talk like this at Walmart. It wasn't like a bad thing to be yourself there. And so it might be my particular experience, but yeah, I'm in favor of Ginny at the back of Costco working on the cakes or working on the cakes anywhere or working anywhere at Costco. Look, we all need to find fulfillment. And it's going to be even more important, I think, in the next 5, 10 years as AI takes almost every job. You know, like if you are a call center person right now or a truck driver right now, like it's time to think about it. Like I just saw a thing online that says like all call center jobs are gone in 2 years because they're just testing this how advanced AI is becoming. And you know this as a customer. You ever tried getting like a refund back on a website lately? You're talking to a robot. Like
yeah. And it's been
people
going
are
on for a while.
disappearing.
Press two. If you, I mean, it's it's been rolling out for a
I
little bit. If your question
I
is this
know.
and that type of thing, Jerry Kaplan, who wrote a book called General, what's it called? Generative artificial intelligence. What everybody needs to know. He says the future of work is human. It's more human than
Yeah.
less human. So work on your humanity, which
Wait,
that's
what's
what this
that book?
book
I
is all
want to read
about.
this book.
It's so good.
Get
It's called Generative Artificial Intelligence, What Everybody Needs to Know. It just came out earlier this year by Jerry Kaplan with a
oh,
K.
okay, got it.
And
I'm gonna look this
yeah,
up. Thank
yeah,
you.
you're gonna like him. The future of work is human hobbies, that type of thing. Okay, we could
Yeah.
talk about a thousand more things. Um, and I didn't even really say that on purpose, but we could talk about a thousand more things. Yeah, I so thoroughly enjoyed the happiness equation. Want nothing plus do everything equals have everything. And this book, The Book of Awesome, plus there's so many other things. You can get the journal. You have a lot of books. This is a book with a secret chapter and nine secrets on how to be happier. And they're like, they give you chills. They're really deep. We only talked briefly about a couple of them, and we're out of time to talk about anymore. So people have to pick it up. But oh my goodness, remember the lottery. we're not going to talk about it. But wow, was that uh, expanding? It was
Mm,
expanding. You're lucky to
mm-hmm.
be alive. I mean, what a chapter.
110 billion people have lived
Yeah,
total. If you're
yeah,
listening to this right now, you're one of the 9 billion people alive today, which, if you do the math, means you already won a lottery because 13 out of every 14 people are dead. 13 out of every 14 people would trade everything they ever have in their entire life for one more day of what we have, right?
yeah.
And if you're listening to this right now, that also means you have the time to listen to a podcast. That means you have the capacity to listen to a cerebral conversation. And I keep going down this opportunity curve and pointing out that, for example, only half the world has access to the internet. Only three-quarters of the world has access to clean water. Only 6% of the world has a post-secondary education of any kind. Only half the world makes more than $5,000 a year. Only 1% of the world makes more than $50,000 a year. And as you keep going down this curve, you keep thinking to yourself, like, I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I'm lucky. Remember the lottery. Remember, we've already won. There's only 30,000 days, also known as 1,000 months, Ginny. That's the average lifespan. 1,000 months. Did you
The
know
book
that?
is,
Average
I did
lifespan
not.
is 1,000 months.
I did
One
not.
thousand months. You get a
Wow.
thousand. Every time you flip the calendar in your kitchen, there's one less. There's only 1,000. That's all we get. 1,000 months. And every day you wake up, guess how long the average person's awake for? 1,000 minutes. It adds up to 16 and 2/3 hours. 1,000 minutes a day. You get 1,000 minutes a day. You get 1,000 months. Get
Wow.
outside for 1,000 hours a
Yeah.
year. Read a
You,
1,000 formative books.
you
Write down a
said,
1,000 awesome things. Yeah, we could make the whole world. I think that number 1,000 is a really powerful number because if you're listening to this and you are a cake baker, you could bake 1,000 cakes. You could bake 1,000 cakes. It's a moonshot, but it's doable. You could write 1,000 blog posts. Many times I wanted to quit those. I was like, I don't have one for tomorrow. Like I thought that so many times. Austin Kleon, who was a past guest, and we talked about him, Steal Like an Artist, wonderful book. He always says he's got this wonderful Friday email. He always says, I sit down on Thursday and I always have nothing to put in that thing the next day. Right.
and
But
he
now
does it
he's
at,
probably done it for 1,000 straight Fridays. And it's
yeah.
one of the best emails I get. It's a wonderful email list.
I talked to this
And
woman
so,
who wrote a book called Improv Wisdom, and it's one of my favorite books I've read this year. She started the Stanford Improvisers, and she's 81 now. And she wrote the book when she was 61, Improv Wisdom, and it's 13 maxims from the world of improv. And one of them is there's always something in the box. Meaning
ooh,
there's
what's
always
that mean?
something. Isn't that good? There's always something there. Like when you sit down on Thursday
Yeah.
night to write the email and you feel like you have nothing, she would say, no, there is. There's always something in the box. You're
You're
always
the
going to
box. The
find
box is the
the
is
box is,
you.
yeah, there's always something in
Ah,
there.
cool. I like that. I
It's a good
like
one.
that.
Okay, wow. Okay, so this is the thing. I've read a tremendous amount of books as well. And you think, well, how could a book widen my perspective as much as this does? And it really did. It widened my perspective so much. This quote, I cried because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. 14 out of 15 people who have ever lived will never see another sunset again, have a bowl of chocolate ice cream, or kiss their kids goodnight. Being alive means you've already won the lottery. But before we wrap up, can we talk about Home Alone?
First of all, I love your energy and like you speak so fast and I love it. You're like a 2x. You're like you talking to I bet you nobody listens to your podcast in 2x because that'd be like 4x. And then the way you jump between things, yeah, Home Alone. I'm in. You want to talk about
Home
Home Alone?
Alone. It's such a good movie.
Yes,
I don't know. It was in
it
the
is.
book, so I put exclamation points. I was like, I love that Home Alone. And then underneath it, I have the quote that says, what are the chances of failing miserably? Very low. And so I don't really even know how those two relate.
I
Why
can connect them. I
oh,
can
about
connect the
going down to the
dots.
basement and the
Yep.
neighbor. It's on page
Yep.
229.
Yep. I can connect the dots for you. So basically, in the movie Home Alone, you will remember there's the old man next door, right? And
Yep.
everyone's scared of this old man. But eventually, Kevin starts to talk to him. And why? What's he talking to him? The old man confides. He's fallen out of touch with his son. They're not speaking. He thinks about him every Christmas, but he can't pick up the phone. Why not? Why can't he do it? Well, he doesn't have the confidence, he doesn't have the motivation. And Kevin says, I've always been afraid of our basement. It's dark, there's weird stuff down there, and it smells funny. That sort of thing. It's bothered me for years, the old man says. I think it's Old Man Morley
I'll be
is
the
his
old
name.
man. I'll be the old man.
Old, okay,
Basements are like that.
nice. I'll be Kevin. Then I made myself go down there and do some laundry, and I found out it's not so bad. All this time I've been worrying about it, but if you turn on the lights, it's no big deal.
What's your point?
My point is you should call your son.
What if he won't talk to me?
At least you'll know. Then you can stop worrying about it, and you won't have to be afraid anymore.
It's such a good movie. It's
And
such
that's
a
the
good movie.
point, is that whatever it is that you're listening to this and thinking about in your own life, I mean, that's kind of how podcasts work for me. I like listen to them, but I'm not thinking about the podcast. I'm thinking about my thing, right? So for people listening, if you're listening to this podcast and you're also thinking about your own thing, the business you want to start, the person you want to ask out, the thing you need to tell your boss that you've been putting off, do it, because then at least you'll know. And then you can stop worrying about it and being afraid of it. And this is embedded within a larger chapter that we did not talk about how um, action precedes motivation versus motivation preceding action. But that's okay. The distilled little bit from Home Alone is a nice way to end, because I'm basically sort of just being that little voice in your shoulder saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. Try it. What's the worst that could happen? At least you'll know.
Yeah.
And you can stop worrying about it.
You wrote the greatest leaders just try and try and try. They try and then they try and then they try some more. What are the chances of failing miserably? Very low. Very low. That's what I said. The whole thing, it was like a whole perspective. Why not? I would have been like, well, it's very high. You could
Look what
totally
you're doing
fail.
with this
Very
podcast.
low.
Look at this podcast. This podcast is like a massive success story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Massive success story. Your frequency's high, you're bubbly, you read a lot of books, but like people could be listening to this thing, I want to start a podcast. Well, there's 5 million podcasts. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to start. Just start. I knew nothing about podcasting when I started.
Same. Pat
You
Flynn. I
figure it
watched his
out, and you
YouTube
still
video.
make mistakes.
That's
I
what I
just got
did.
back from New Jersey. I flew down there. I interviewed a guy. I pressed record after we were recording, and I taped over our whole conversation. Like 6 years later, I like totally screwed it up. Like that's gonna keep happening, you know?
Yeah.
You know.
This would land in my, is it 1,000? In my 1,000 most formative books in the world. The Happiness Equation by Neil Pasricha. You want to check it out. And all of the other ones. Neil, we always end, if you could wrap us up here real quick with a favorite memory from your childhood that was outside.
My favorite memory as a child that was outside is probably tobogganing. There was a hidden hill behind my old elementary school, Sunset Heights Public School in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, that went down a hill, and at the bottom of the hill there was a barbed wire fence. And so it was actually really fun as kids because you had to go down the hill and then you had to jump off. You had to, otherwise you'd hit a farmer's barbed wire fence. Like it was like 50 feet on, but
Like, what parent? What parent? No big deal. Just gonna take
yeah,
your
I know.
toboggan and go.
Exactly. Yeah, we were basically tobogganing into like, certain death. But it was look, I'm 45. You asked me, it's the first thing that came to my mind. So
Yeah, that risky
yeah,
play.
we need to let our kids look, Lenore Skenazy, free range kids. Like we need to let our kids wander more and get out there more. And you're the queen of this. So
Neil, someone who has sold 2 million books, has been on our podcast. What an honor. Thank you so much for being here.
Jenny, thank you so much for you and this project and this podcast. I love what you do. Thank you so much for having me.